welcome to another episode of How'd You Get Here? My guest today has extensive knowledge and experience in the world of college athletics. His experience includes director of athletics positions at Elizabeth City State University um, in North Carolina, Moravian University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and served as associate director of athletics at Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. He's occupied seats as the chair of Athletic Directors Association, vice president of the Management Council of the CIAA, NCAA Minority Opportunities and Interest Committee, member of the NCAA Division II Nominating Committee, and I believe currently nomination committee for Division I as well. And he's one of 24 athletic directors who were selected nationally to be in the inaugural class of the NCAA Leadership
Yep.
Institute. He has degrees and certifications from Claflin University, South Carolina State University, Notre Dame, University of South Carolina, as well as working towards his doctorate at East Stroudsburg University. And he just so happens to be my family. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome George Bright to the show. How you doing, cousin?
Listen, it's such a pleasure to have an opportunity to sit and talk with you about what I love, collegiate athletics. All right. So,
Fantastic.
you've given me a great introduction. Thank you so much. I was trying to figure out who you're talking to or what I'm talking about, but, really excited to see you launch your career with this entity and really excited to spend some time with you today. So, hey, man, let's get at it. What you got?
Hey, I appreciate it. Listen, you know how it is. I had some scripted questions. Um, I
Hey,
don't care
let's go
about
off
them.
script. Let's just go.
Right.
All right.
So why don't you give me some insight into George Bright right now? The first off, let's talk about. I gave the accolades and past tense and historical stuff. Let's talk about current. Where are you at right now?
Currently, I serve as the Deputy Director of Athletics at the great Bethune-Cookman University down here in beautiful Daytona Beach. It doesn't get any better than this, man, I'll tell you, all right? We kind of like the residents in the zip code here at this point. But, my primary role, seriously, is as the number two here. I serve, our Director of Athletics is, you might know him, NBA legend, Reggie Theus. I have the
Chicago
opportunity
Bulls,
to
Reggie
serve.
Theus, right?
How about it, man? I have the
Yeah.
opportunity to serve as his number two. He's also the men's basketball coach here. So, having a seasoned deputy here to help run the show when things need to be run, it's probably important for that. So I do that. It's my primary role as his number two, which is pretty much chief of staff and overseeing administrations and operations of what needs to occur. But here, I'm actually celebrating year number two as of yesterday here down at
Oh, that's
Bethune.
fantastic.
Really excited about this journey.
So let's talk about the athletic department. So if
Sure.
you can, list give an audience a sense of what roles are typically make up the athletic department.
Okay. Great question. And we'll steer it in the way that I think your audience could certainly understand. So taking a look at an athletics department is just like any other org chart, any other business, if you will. You're going to have your CEO, your director, your leader, whatever position that might be, and in that org chart there'll be number ones, number twos, if you will, and then of course different department heads within their specific divisions. So in the case of athletics, at most schools, generally speaking, not just here, but at most other places, you'll have an assistant or associate AD for administration. And then you'll have different departments like your athletic training, your sports marketing, your coaches, and in particular their sports, and of course all the other entities that go along with that: athletic communications, student success, your academic success people, your mentors, and others. So again, that administrative piece is one of the things that I'll handle here, or we handle, we'll put it that way, here at
Sure.
Bethune-Cookman University.
So let's talk about your start then, right? Because we talk about different roles. Where did you begin on your
You
sports
know,
journey?
that's a great question, and I'm oftentimes asked this question, and I'm proud to say that my athletic career started in my early 20s at South Carolina State University, and I started in the ticket office there, which very quickly progressed to being the first director of the state club at South Carolina State. And the state club, if you look at the acronym, stands for Striving Through Athletics to Excel. It's the
Okay.
fundraising arm of the Department of Athletics at South Carolina State that still stands strong today. it certainly was a tremendous responsibility for a young administrator at that time, which allowed for me, if you will, to cut my teeth in athletics. And really, it was a high pressure championship environment. I know, from a family perspective, you had a chance to come in and see, the young guy in operation down there at
I
South
remember
Carolina
those
State
days. Yeah.
decades ago when I think you were in school. All right. And you could see that that's blossomed even to this day. So I had the opportunity to cut my teeth in athletics. I started there at South Carolina State University, and that was actually in 1988, Christian.
Ooh. So,
Yeah.
so it's interesting, right? Because we're talking about fundraising,
Hmm.
right? And that's something that resonates with anyone and everyone, especially if they have children, right? Either you've been on one side of getting someone to give you money for a cause, right? Or you've given the money to the cause, right? So you talk about the responsibility in that. That's fundraising at a very high level. Okay. So so talk about, one, what you learned from that, what skills you developed from that, right? And two, uh, in hindsight, how could you have gone about it differently?
Great question. Sometimes, listen, the great prophet Jill Scott talks about this in one of my favorite songs. Sometimes we all got to swim upstream. Okay. So that's a long walk. That's a song. So what
Hmm.
happened in my career at South Carolina State? I'd started. They pretty much picked up this guy, dropped him in the deep end, and said, "Swim, man." Okay. So there wasn't that 6 month ramp up or educational sessions and 30, 60, 90 days of what it takes to get going. And a lot of times, and particularly in athletics, it is exactly what I've described for you. You're picked up, you're welcomed, and you're dropped in the deep end. Okay.
Mm,
And told you need to swim, we'll help you. We won't let you drown, but man, you better start paddling right now. So sometimes we all got to swim upstream, is my
yeah.
point. So with that in fundraising, it's learning those skills pretty quickly, being able to talk to people, network, develop, don't, under promise, but over deliver, execute things are very important when it comes to fundraising. But being able to shake somebody's hand, talk to them about what their experience is. If you got to fix it, and then build that relationship. So over time, that person that might have said no on day one might say maybe next year, might say, oh, I'll think about it the following year, and then give you the gift that you might be asking for. Okay.
So it goes with the theme of probably of our last conversation I had with one of the guests is, your purpose and your reason behind asking has to be pure, right? Because if they
Yes.
say no the first time, you're gonna want to come back the next time, and you have better left a good um, just example of how you are as a person when you left them last, right?
Well, people give to people or for people
Right.
or situations like that. Now, people don't give to pay the light bill or keep the water running. People don't give for that, all right? But
Hmm.
people will give because they've had a great experience or a great time, or there's something that they're passionate about. Now, the great thing behind the scenes that I think helps with cultivation in any case is finding the sweet spot for the right person to give. Okay, if you have an interest in uh, you know, uh, the color orange, okay? But I
I do.
try to sell you the color blue. You
Right.
want to talk about orange, all right? And I know that's passionate for you,
Right.
Christian. So again, it's really trying to find the right path, the right sweet spot, the right opportunity, or the right thing for that individual to feel passionate about it. And you're not just targeting a gift for a gift, but you're building a relationship and you're building a culture and you're building a foundation that could last, in perpetuity. I mean, money is there, and it's not that you're chasing the money, but you want to make sure that you're chasing the moment. Okay.
This athletic sports space that you're in is a lot of swimming upstream and drop you in and figure it out. And part of what the reason behind the show is I want people to see the journeys that people took to get to where they're at, so they can put themselves in those shoes and be inspired to maybe do the same thing. And so I'm saying all that to say this: knowing who you are, knowing what you've accomplished, and knowing where you come from. You know, you had a degree in music. How soon after you got that piece of paper that says, "Listen, I'm pretty good with music here, right now, get out of here." how did sports come into play?
That's a great section. Well, the intersection of music and sports, sometimes people don't realize that there is an actual intersection. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of group dynamic. There's a lot of opportunity to work again with someone. You learn, your person to the left, person to the right, and whatever dynamic or capacity it is. Now, I've always had a passion for sports, but I also want to understand. I want people to understand that are listening, whether it's a degree in music, art, whatever it might be, you have the opportunity to control what you can control. And if you're interested in going into a discipline that's outside of your major, that's okay. I think you'll find percentages here locally and even in the United States where people working outside of their degree, the percentage is higher than people working inside their discipline or inside their degree. So don't let that stop anyone. All right. I do have a
Mhm.
passion for music. At one point, we'll talk about where that comes from and my background, but that doesn't mean that I can't have a passion for something else, which I
That's right.
actually do. I love what I do, man. I've been doing it for nearly 40 years, all right? And I have the opportunity and the cadence and the capacity to be very successful with where it is. Now, you do network, you do take
Mhm.
opportunities to move through, and certainly I didn't win the NBA championship or play in the NFL or anything like that, but you're going to find that there are others that are in this field of athletics that might not have done those things either. But that
Right.
doesn't stop you from being a strong administrator, a strong ticket seller, a strong fundraiser, somebody that's in athletic training that really is passionate about the recovery side of it, or even the sport marketing side. Even the social media side of athletics right now, there are people that are doing that might not have played at a professional level or at the highest
Mhm.
level, but they're very successful in their capacity. So again, it doesn't matter. Sure, we'll get into what qualifications that I might look at when we're looking to hire somebody. But I always have that thought in my mind, Christian, that hey, that person sitting across the desk or sending the resume to me could be me, all right? Could be
Right.
somebody that might not have had those backgrounds, but has the passion, desire, and could build that cadence to make that championship culture work for that program. So that's where I come from with that.
I love it. I love it because that's going to take me to something based off what you just said is environment is important,
Oh, and let
right?
me go back to one thing too.
Go
There are
ahead.
athletes that love music, and there are musicians that love athletics. So there's an
Right.
intersection that crosses somewhere. And I can tell you, you talked about me not completing a doctoral program, which I'll go into for a second. If at the end of that day, and I had the option, I still might do it, even though I'm kind of moving up in age, I still might do that. But that book or that dissertation would be the intersection of athletics and music. Okay,
Nice.
there's an
Nice.
intersection that fits right there, and it's a story that I think people would enjoy. So more
Absolutely.
to come on that piece.
That's so important because, like I said, you touched on it, man. I want people to understand you can follow the path that makes sense for you, right?
Right.
And if you're coming from an area that was not um, based on athletics, but I mean, you know how I am about athletics, right? I didn't
Yeah.
play ball, but people come to train with me, right?
There
Because
you
I
go.
just love it and I'm a student of the game, right?
And if you're good at
So
what you do, you're good at what you do.
good at what I do, and I want to go where I was going with this is environment because I think it's important too, though, that so we do know that there's companies that and you're one person sitting in your seat and there are other folks um in other areas who sit in the seats but look for specific things, right? And they have to be almost exact, right? And that's why I think environment of where you're looking to go as someone else trying to get into an area, that has to make sense. So you need to look into that, right? So if I'm a young professional or if I'm transitioning into careers, I need to make sure where I'm trying to get into makes sense for me, right? From an environmental standpoint, right? So because I think you can attest to this, like you said, you were dropped into something at South Carolina State. You thrived in that, right? Because it was an environment that was meant for you to thrive in, right? So any advice on people who are looking to transition into this space that you're in right now?
Cool. So let's take a step back before the job at South Carolina State.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
So before the position at South Carolina State, I was the manager of a retail store down in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Shout out to
A
Orangeburg, South Carolina.
South Carolina, right? So at that location, and in that small town, a person like me with a pretty good personality, I feel would have had an opportunity to shine and to grow. So from that experience at that place, again, I'm sure they had 100 applicants. I'm sure they had others that were considered for the position. But something about that position where I had the opportunity to speak to people like the president of the university who are coming into shop or others that were coming into the
Right.
store, they said he would be terrific for this position. So it wasn't about a resume that said you have 4 years of experience or anything like that. It was a natural fit that I think, not that I think, it's very clear to me that that's God ordained, to look at a career in athletics from somebody that doesn't have a degree or played professionally in athletics to have, a progressive career in the way that I did. So again, it's about being at the right place, right time, knowing people, and then executing what you got.
I want to stay there, right? Because that is a sports reference, right? Because at the end of the
Right.
day, I tell kids all the time, you got to play like you mean it all the time, like you want it all the time, because you never know who's watching, right? And that's kind
Right.
of the same thing you just talked about. You were working where you were working. Somebody watched it, saw it, loved it, said, I got to have a piece of that and brought it in, right?
Hey, I didn't have a degree in business, but I was the manager of a retail store right out of college.
So skills translate, right? Skills translate. And I think that's important.
Absolutely.
That's important. No, good
Right.
stuff.
Personality
Um,
too.
what's that?
Personality and the ability to have a conversation is very important.
Absolutely. Especially when you go into where you're at and where you've gone, right? So let's talk about um, one of the things I know there's a big project you did, which is a stadium revamp, right?
Sure.
And those aren't cheap, right?
No.
Those aren't cheap to do, right? And so there's a few things you had to do, right? There's research involved, right? There's there's asking for the money and a lot of different things. So again, I want to get into um, talk about the skill sets, that you need to be able to do your job, right? And I'm talking about, whether it be technical, just get into it, right? Just give people an understanding of what the job actually entails, like a day-to-day
Well,
perspective, even.
yeah. Generally speaking, I want to say it this way. Okay. It's important to quickly learn the cadence, the expectations, and the culture of the environment where you are. It might be a monumental challenge, but you have to quickly do that. You've got to embrace that process. Do it quickly, embrace the process. The journey is important and it matters, but you got to love what you're doing because there are going to be some times where it's going to be a challenge and you might be in a space where you're not the most the person in the room that knows the most about that particular situation,
Right.
okay? And sometimes it's good to be in that position. But
Always good to
sometimes
be in that position.
you
Yeah.
need to know or be one of those people that,
Hmm.
knows your craft and your cadence and the skill set as to what it is that needs to get done. I've had an opportunity. You're talking about facilities of again, not saying this as a check off list. I'm just simply saying I've had an opportunity at several different schools to be involved in some really nice facility projects that I'm very proud of to this day that are still standing and representing appropriately. Doesn't take one, and please don't understand, Christian, and I wasn't out there with a hammer just building it,
That
by
wasn't you.
myself. It
That wasn't
certainly
you.
takes a full team to get things done, but again, knowing the expectation,
Hmm.
delivering on what the culture might be. I've been in places where, hey, listen, we got to find the cheapest thing possible and just live with that. I've been in places where the question is, hey, listen, we don't want the cheapest, we want the best. So find the best. Okay. Find what's better than the other school down the street. Find what they have, what's better. All right. And we want to have better product. Forget the cost, get the best. Sometimes that's even difficult to do too. And I've been in those spaces as well, Christian. And you have to be able to understand the cadence, understand the expectation, and then deliver on that culture of that expectation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good work. I want to switch gears for a second for something I want to know. So you've
Sure.
had the opportunity to work in multiple conferences, right? Up
Sure.
and down up
Yep.
and down this side of the country. Um, is there a tangible feel across the conferences? There's times where it's suffocating,
True.
right? There's times where you feel like, man, I can breathe in this conference. I feel comfortable here, right?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
I need to get out of here, right? So whatever those variables that cause that is what I'm really trying to understand, right? But or if
Okay.
does it even exist, right? So if I go from the Patriot to the SWAC, can you tell? Listen, I'm in the SWAC or I'm in the Patriot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, as you talked about in the intro, I've had an opportunity to work in divisions one, two, and three.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
And in each of those scenarios, there are, they're conference driven. So again, each conference kind of is, it got to understand how the conference drives and thrives. And usually the presidents of the universities are the leaders, if you will, of that conference. There's an executive director, of course, or a commissioner, or whatever you might call it, depending on the conference that you're in. But the president set policy and tone, if you will, and then the executive director or the commissioner will execute the policies and tones set by the NCAA, by the conference of conferences, all right, and then of course
Mhm.
by the presidents that are there. I've come to find this. So it's not Division I, II, and III. It's actually one, two, and three. And what I mean by that is that the same principles will apply all across the board. You're going to have a commissioner, you're going to have a board that consists of your athletic directors, and then it's a majority vote on a lot of those situations. I don't want to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I don't mean it by that way, but I do mean that you got to know your stuff, got to know what you're talking about. You need to have a great vision and be abreast of policies, particularly NCAA legislations and bylaws that are there, and be able to execute and speak to those when it comes time for policy changes as well. So the conferences, although big and small, Patriot, Landmark, SWAC, MEAC, CIAA, they're conferences. The thread or the common piece of each one is that it takes a strong administrator to lead it. And then, of course, you're dealing with policy procedures and executing game operations and things like that to put everybody on a better platform or even a bigger platform, because conferences usually are handling those championships that then move on to an NCAA platform. So again, it's really positioning yourself to help lead and direct those conferences to move those conferences forward, whether they're big or small. You'll see Division threes and Division ones talking about the same thing. Okay.
Same thing.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's good stuff. And I want to go
Okay.
back a step too. You touched on quickly understanding the cadence of the environment you're in, right?
Hmm.
And diagnosing, I'll say that word, the culture. What do you're gonna tell people, or can you give people insight into how you go about doing that?
I would say to any candidate that's in that, whether it's someone coming for a position here or someone that's looking, to thrive in a different location, that networking and asking questions and spending time with other colleagues, if you're working on a campus, get off that campus and travel to other places, travel to competitions and see how other offices work. Go to events, go to those NCAA seminars and on something outside of what it is that you do. If you're in sports marketing, go to the compliance seminar. All right. You'll
Right,
you'll
right.
learn a lot of different things. You'll be able to network in different spaces that you're not normally in. So do those professional development opportunities. What worked for me is to get out of my comfort zone. It's easy for me to sit in my own comfort zone and talk to myself. I mean, it's easy to do that. And you can get kind of complacent that way. So take those risks.
Mhm.
Understand that again, you're going to run into some really smart people. Engage with them, deal with them. All right. I've got relationships at the NCAA at a bunch of different levels. It's good to know people that are the mid-level folks that are dealing with things all the time. Serve on committees, the NCAA
I was gonna
committee. I'm
go
on
there
the
with you.
nominating committee, all right, that, you got to do your own homework on that, but it's a pivotal committee at the
Hmm.
NCAA, a very
Hmm.
pivotal committee, all right? And just try to get better every day. Every day, just try to just move that needle just one more notch up. But most importantly, you got to pray in the mornings, okay?
Hmm. I love it. I love it. So,
Yeah,
so I do want to ask though. So, what's because I was going to get into the committee piece because what you just finished talking about
yeah,
triggered me to ask. What drives you to get on those committees? I understand. I understand who you are as a person, right? You
yeah,
serve, right? And that's what
yeah.
you do.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
server.
so I'm not going to ask that question. I'm going to ask who mentored you, or who's a key figure that got you to recognize you need to get into these things, George.
Yeah, I stand on the shoulders of some really strong mentors, okay? And one of them is still in the profession today. His name is Gene Marshall. Look him up. He's at Binghamton University. He's the athletic director there. What a great friend of mine. And, he's a mentor now. People think mentors have to be 20 and 30 years older than you, and they don't, all right? Gene and I are about the same age,
Mhm.
and have had the same kind of background of career. But I just enjoy the depth of conversation that we have about collegiate athletics, and we've been friends for a long time.
Mhm.
But it's not about that. It's about just his body of work and the things that he can bring to the table to enlighten me on a variety of myriad of different subjects. Another mentor is Willie Jeffries. Willie Jeffries
South
was a
Carolina State.
two-time head coach at South Carolina State,
Yeah.
and every time I see him, there's just so many great nuggets. He's retired now, but I still know he works, in a great way for the Bulldogs in Orangeburg. So, but it's not that; it's just the nuggets of wisdom that he can provide in life. When I'm running up against a turn that's tough, I can say, hey, Coach, I need 5 minutes. And I don't talk to him every day. It might 2 years might go by,
Right.
right? But the opportunity to get the nuggets of wisdom from a legend like that are very important. When I was at Elizabeth City State, I had the opportunity to work through another CIAA legend. His name is Robert Vaughn. He has since passed away. But Coach Bobby Vaughn, what a legend in those parts, in the CIAA, if you will,
Mhm.
and would just spend time with him. He was on the latter part of his life and found himself not being able to drive. Okay. But in Elizabeth City, I was able to kind of just drive him a little bit to those places he'd like to go and just understand the wisdom and the nuggets that he would provide to make things greater, and some of the visions that he might have had during the time when he was coaching. So people like that have invested time and wisdom in me, I hand them the mantle of mentor for me. Now, there are three things that need to occur. You need to have a mentor, you need to be able to mentor people, all right? And then you need to be able to understand kind of where you are on that precipice. So I enjoy being mentored, I enjoy mentoring, and I enjoy helping people become mentors themselves, if that makes any sense.
Now, and you kind of transitioned for me a couple, but I want to go back because you said, the whole thing about mentors. People do think, they need to be somebody your senior by many years to be your
Right.
mentor, but that's not the case at all. Especially like,
Not at all.
we had Dietrich Taylor on the last show, and he talked about
Right.
like Konzo Martin. Konzo's the same age as us. Well, not me, not you, because you're
Right.
an old guy, but
Oh,
he's
thanks.
the same age as
So,
me, as Dietrich and I. And I gotta tell you,
right.
I never sat down directly with him, but I've been with Konzo, but I've been in spaces where he speaks, and it is dynamic. It really is, and I can see why
Yes.
all these other coaches, always mention his name, right? So to your
Yeah.
point, it does make sense. It does not have to be somebody 20 years your senior, right? And then I want to get into I want to transition to the mentoring because I know you do that and you enjoy that because you mentored, my nephew a number of
Yeah.
times.
How about
And
that? Yeah.
so I want to ask you, what does that do for you personally?
Well, what it does for me, it's not that I'm looking for satisfaction. It is that
Mhm.
I am looking to help and to share any nugget or wisdom or common sense that I can provide for somebody that's trying to break into the industry themselves. It's always important to be able to do that, and whether it's somebody you don't know or it's somebody you're related to or somebody just comes in and says, "Hey, listen, I'd like to ask you a few questions or hear about your journey so I can get better." Um,
Yeah.
that's what it's about. So, whether it's somebody that I've known for a long time or whether it's somebody that just, hey, says, hey, man, I got a question. Saw you on LinkedIn. Can I ask you a question? I want to take the time to do that. And I'll tell you why. One of the people I didn't say, but I meant to say is Dr. McKinley Boston. Okay. If you get a chance, just kind of Google his name in a moment. Dr. Boston was an athletic director at a lot of great places. What's great about this intersection, he was actually Reggie Theus's athletic director a long time ago. All right. But
Okay.
we didn't know that until we were just laughing about it probably about 6 months ago. But when I, Christian, was at South Carolina State, again, I couldn't send him a text because texts weren't there at that
Right.
point.
Right.
But it was a matter. I communicated with Dr. Boston and said, "Hey, I'm a young guy just kind of breaking into collegiate athletics. I see you've been there for a minute. Can I spend some time with you?" And you know what he said? "Come see me at the NCAA convention." Okay. Went to the NCAA convention, and Christian, I tell you what, he cut so many light bulbs on for me in terms of breaking into collegiate athletics, a minority in a majority world, and all those kinds of things. This is even at South Carolina State. He said, "Listen, don't stay there long. You've got a great personality. Do 3, 4, 5 years, and then try to move on to another location." But he was very intentional in bringing up young black men into the profession of collegiate athletics outside of HBCUs, if that makes any sense. Okay. And so
Yeah.
he
Absolutely.
became a mentor of mine in that space. So just like your nephew, all right, there are many others. I was in that same position saying, "Hey, I'm a young guy that's interested. Can you spend a few minutes?" If he would have said no, all right. If he would have said no, I don't know what the reaction might have been. But it's not the fact that
Mhm.
he it's not the fact that he didn't respond, it's the fact that he did, okay?
Right.
And took the opportunity to embrace with me and to spend some time with me. And I try to do that with people at this point in my life as well. It's an
Awesome.
important piece. And I don't think
That's beautiful.
anybody should kind of overlook that moment because there are young budding people looking up to others that want to say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I like what you do," or "I think I like what you do," or "Hey, what do you do?" Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's one of those moments that I think is important.
And I think too, you have to have confidence to do it, right?
Yes.
And that's a big thing, right? So let me ask you a question. What what gives you the confidence to do that for folks, right? Because that's a responsibility to have, right? To be a mentor for someone. So what gives you the confidence to know you can do that for someone?
Well, I think that's in our DNA. Okay. It is. It's in our DNA. And it's certainly in mine as well. Not to just go to work, but, do work when you go to work. Okay.
Hmm.
And understand that, we've got to reach back and bring people along with us. That's just how things are. That's how we're built. That's how I'm built.
That's
And
what
it's
we were
just what
shown.
it is.
We were shown that as in
Right.
our family.
We
Yeah,
were shown
you're
that.
right.
Okay. And, it's not as if it's not just we're just doing what we were shown, but there is there's a reward. Is it monetary?
Mhm.
No. Is it, you're spending time with people that doesn't turn into something else? No, but you get a chance to see others grow and see people develop their own families and see people become successful. And like your nephew, you're telling me he's got his master's degree now, which is great. He's doing some great things. And he came to me, I think it was sixth
It
grade
first
or
started in the eighth grade, I believe, right?
eighth grade, and then we did
Might have
some
been
other
eighth
things
grade.
even after that. Yeah, Moravian and a few others. So,
Yeah,
you know, it
he came to see you as a eighth grader, a high school kid, and then he interned with you,
right.
right, at
Yeah,
Moravian. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
So,
absolutely.
and when I follow him on LinkedIn, or even when, we get an opportunity to catch up at a reunion or dinner or something like that, although the years may go by, there's still hopefully there's still a good impression that I've made for him. And certainly I'd love to see the growth of people that turn around and say, "You know what? Appreciate it, man. Thanks for
Absolutely.
telling me that one tip 20 years ago. It still
Right. You
resonates with
stuck
me
with him.
today." Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something. Have you ever tried to get into the realm of professional sports?
No, it's not as if I would not be intrigued with that, but I do think that I kind of like the space that I'm in now. It's not that I'm comfortable or complacent with it. It's just I kind of like that collegiate athletic space. Now, collegiate athletics is developing its own professional level, as we will probably get
Yeah.
into at some point. All right. But, again, I do like the collegiate space. I mean, I think there's
Mhm.
something really significant about watching, 18 and 19-year-olds, turn into great men and women and to
Right.
really become and do some great things. I just think that there's a space there. There's a space and time that I think I fit and thrive in. But hey, if LeBron calls tonight, I'd take the call.
Right. So two things we know have dominated the conversation in athletics. We know the three-letter NIL, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the portal, right?
Yeah.
But my question though is, how has it impacted how sports departments work?
Well, sometimes the question becomes what do you see athletics being 5, 10 years from now? I think
Hmm.
that question is now developed, Christian, and where is athletics going to be in 5 to 10 minutes from now? Okay.
Right.
5 to 10 weeks from now.
Right.
We talked about this NIL deal, and just within the last month, we all saw and read and heard that that's moving into the high school realms. Okay,
Hmm.
where high school athletes are striking their own NIL deals. It- I don't know where that goes or where that ends, but I do know that NCAA legislation and policy needs to catch up with the real times of what's happening with our high school kids and the
Right.
portal and NIL money and the depths of that and all of those things. So, and I'm not throwing shade anywhere to anybody, to any
Absolutely.
organization. I just know that what's happening in real time, our legislations and policies aren't
It's
with it.
lagging.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking about amateurism, but that's not even the case anymore. All right. The scholarship questions now become what's my NIL deal? We're paying full scholarships plus, not the universities are paying, but there are collectives out there that are gathering a lot of money. And some of these athletes that are going to play are actually being paid to play. All right. So
Hmm.
it's just, can we change that now? I doubt it. All right. It's hard to go back. It's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, man. It really is. All right. So how do we quickly get legislation around that? All right. And there are a lot of people in Indianapolis, Indiana, trying to figure that out right now, called the NCAA.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm not throwing shade at anyone. I just know that that's a challenge that we have in front of us. The portal's another,
Yep.
element to that. And I think that the NCAA and others are putting, good boundaries around that. There have always been boundaries around the portal. Just it's
Right.
exploding now. That's the only thing. But it's the
Yeah,
NIL.
here's what I tell people about the portal. My sense on that, right? I've always said, listen, portal's always been here, right? I think to me, what's changed is how coaches shop, right? Coaches used to
Right,
shop at the high
right,
school
right,
store first, then the JUCO store,
right,
then the portal store. Well,
right.
now they shop at the portal store first. JUCO's still in the middle. Now the high school store is last, right? Because the best deals are at the other two stores now, you know?
Right.
And so that argument about you hear a lot of parents saying, "Oh, the high school kids now." Listen, the kids that are in college were high school kids before too, so who have more experience, right? So I get
Yeah.
it, right? And
And it
so
really depends on what you need at the moment.
yeah, and it's all about and coaches got to find the right piece for their program.
Right,
That's the thing. It's about finding the right pieces. They might not need 25 points, but they might need 10 rebounds and 8 assists. I don't know, but
right.
it's about the pieces that they need, right? And so that's why I tell people you got to be careful about what you're saying and how you go about it, right? It's just how they shop has changed, right? Nothing's changed but the shop and how they shop.
What I think we'll find on the back end of this, and this is, again, this is, just me just talking it out in real
Mhm.
time, is that, what we love about collegiate athletics now or have in the past is an allegiance to where they played and, at
Right,
school. Okay.
right.
I know your time at Clemson and you had met many athletes and they're always back at homecoming and then enjoying and wearing all the orange and all. I get that. I've seen that from time and time from many of the places where I've been in the past.
Hmm.
But I think what the portal does is just it removes that piece for, those athletes, I'm sorry, that move from place to place to place to place. There's that allegiance isn't there. All right. So, although they might have scored some points and maybe even, had an opportunity to raise a banner, but the allegiance is the piece that I think that we'll
Right.
have to that'll be the result of us not being able to,
Yeah, yeah.
execute the way that we want. Yeah.
So technology,
Yeah.
right? Because you came in a space where there was, when it was beepers, right? And pagers. So,
Yeah.
so now, now we got all kinds of tech, right? So how has that changed the industry? And since you've been in the game, right? We know speed
Yeah,
is always has changed, but what do you
you,
see really the
you
impact of tech has had on your
well, I
space?
mean, you've got to be relevant. You got to, anybody needs to stay with the times. I mean, I'm not saying that I have to be able to, write a program, all right, that, speaks to a new technology, but I
Right.
do think that you have to understand and have that, like I talked about the cadence, you got to have the opportunity to be able to be relevant in those spaces.
Hmm.
Social media changes a lot. What universities have now are certainly social media managers that are managing the professional account, of course, and some of them are still even managing some of the individual accounts that are there for head coaches and ads and positions
Hmm.
like that. So technology moves. It's just like that portal and the NIL that we talked about. It's going to change today. We can ask, what will technology look like in 5 years? That's not a relevant question now. We need to
Not
ask, what
relevant.
will it look like in 5 days or 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it does change that quickly. And it's just being relevant, embracing it. You can run from it if you want to, but I've always had this conversation when people say, not everybody has a cell phone. I always ask the question, tell me one person you know that doesn't have one above the age of 6.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, you know, again, people just
So
have to, you just have to stay relevant within it.
stay relevant. So I'm gonna we're gonna close it out here a little bit, but I want to know.
Okay.
'Cause I think there's we know that a lot of times there's stressful situations, right? And you're in high impact
Yes.
situations as well, right?
Yes.
So talk about how you handle those pressures of those stressors that
Okay.
may happen.
Yeah, there are pressures and there are turning points in any career, all right?
Hmm.
But the thing is, and again, the longer one lives, the more turns you're going to have.
Right.
It comes with the territory. But the point that I want to let your folks know is that there are going to be moments in those turns, all right? And some of those
Hmm.
turns are going to be positive experiences where you're turning up, you're trajecting upward and the turns work. And sometimes there comes those teachable moments. You know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about. They
Hmm.
just happen in life. But again, I just want people to understand that that's where you grow. That's where strength comes from. I've learned in life that you're not going to win every game. It's just not going to happen. We're not winning every game, okay?
Right.
But I've also learned that those that possess great juggling skills can be the ones that are pretty successful. If you have the ability to learn how to juggle, I'm talking, philosophically, but if you have the
Hmm.
ability to learn how to juggle, understand that there are going to be different balls that get thrown into that thing that you're doing, all right? Some look good but hurt when you pick them up. Some shatter when they hit the ground. Some bounce straight back up. Some look bad, but actually are pretty good for you. So just understand that successful people have learned the ability to juggle and to juggle well. Juggle family, juggle jobs, juggle your faith, keep that where it needs to be, and juggle relationships, juggle, time off, which is tough in athletics. It just is. All right.
Hmm.
Juggling all of those things, but understanding the important pieces and understanding the ones that can bounce back and the ones that can shatter. Okay. So
Yeah.
again, staying strong in those turns are important. Anybody on the track understands you can kill it on the straightaway, but the turn is where you kind of win.
Turn.
So get strong in those turns. Understand they're going to happen. They're going to happen. Not
Yeah.
everybody's going to like you. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I'm just going to
yeah,
add to that too. That to me, it's about managing the situation, right? You're going to have
yeah,
winners, you're going to have losers, but if
yes,
you manage the losers so they don't take away all the momentum and steam you built up and positivity you built up from the winners, you're going to be
right,
okay, right?
yeah,
Because your
okay,
stack is going to continue to grow, right? There's probability weighted in your
right,
favor, right?
right. And those that are losing, continue to manage them that they are not losers. All
Mm,
right.
I
They're
love it.
not losers. You might have lost the game, but you're not a
Yeah,
loser. All right. And don't
yeah, yeah.
settle for that. Just get better. Get stronger in that turn.
So listen,
Yeah.
George Bright, athletic director at Bethune-Cookman University in
Beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida.
beautiful Daytona Beach,
A
Florida. Listen, I'm
world's
going to tell you, I'm so thrilled that you were here with me today, and I
yes.
will tell you, our grandfather right now is like, yo. grandson number 1 and number 3 got
There they
busy
are.
today, so I appreciate you
Right.
stepping on the microphone with me today.